it's so unique in its presentation, and it's so ridiculous in its presentation that I can't help but just smile every time that I watch it, because I'm just like, I have no idea how the fuck this happened. We had this really cool idea, right? We're like, oh, yeah, we're going up to Pittsburgh. I'm gonna fucking project you guys on a fog screen.
Yeah.
8 million lasers, and like it's just gonna be just a sheer like volume of stuff should make it the coolest thing ever.
I like the simplicity of like the motive behind it. It was just like, I'm gonna go to Pittsburgh and I've got access to these incredible room full of lasers. You guys send me time-lapse footage of yourself. And then like literally like, you know, Packy and I went over to the lockout in the studio in Culver City and just like sat there and like danced like idiots in front of the camera.
That part.
Yeah. Because it's a time lapse. You know,
like 10 minutes, right? 15 minutes.
It was like 25 minutes a piece or something like that.
Yeah. It's like at a certain point you just feel kind of like a stripper, just like, all right, just are we good? Like just keep going. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just like me and him just like in there, like quietly, you know, doing this. And, you know, after we get a couple of takes of that and like, I'm like sweating, you know, like after 20 minutes of dancing to the song. And then we get that, we send it to you. And like, that's, you know, when we started to see the stuff come back from you while you were up at the warehouse, that, you know, that was obviously really sick to see. But like, I like the fact that the process led the way as opposed to like having a really preconceived notion of what it was going to be.
I worked with Fish's programmer, Andrew Giffen. He helped me with this whole thing. So like, not only did you have me, but you had the fucking like mad scientist behind Fish's light show working on it too. He spent days in the Lightwave facility programming, experimenting.
What is the Lightwave facility?
So Lightwave International is the laser vendor that I've used for the last 10 years for all of my concert work. So whether it's Pretty Lights, Banks, whatever festival stuff, right? They're the guys that I work with to develop all the laser shows that you've seen me do over the years. And so during the pandemic, they were like, well, shit, this is the first time in ever all of our stuff has been home at the same time, because what they'll do a lot of times is they'll actually house stuff in Denver or in California, so that way it's easier to ship, you know, last minute for like different things. So like, let's say their inventory is whatever, 500 lasers, right? 100 of those lasers are going to live somewhere else full time. Like they never go back to Pittsburgh unless they need to be repaired, and then they'll ship them all back and they'll ship a whole separate batch out.
Got it.
So never in in years had they had all of their stuff back at the facility. Yeah. So yeah, I'll throw something together and we'll come up with this. You know, just it doesn't even have to be like anything conceptual necessarily, because we have access to more gear than any human should possibly have access to. So I didn't think that we needed to try that hard to make it cool, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be cool. Well, get all the footage home, and it just was not as cool as I hoped it would be. I drove up to Pittsburgh by myself with all this gear, worked with some of the greatest people in the business. We do all this. We were so jazzed on it because in real life, it looked really amazing.
Yeah.
But on camera, it just didn't capture the magic that we were really hoping for. But that's fine, because as we do in our world of touring professionals, you roll with the punches, which I believe is a song, is it not?
It is indeed. Nice one. You said you didn't prepare.
Right in there, didn't you?
You said you didn't prepare. I don't believe it.
It was a real wild ride, if you know.
Well, the fucked up thing is that I'm actually a fan of you guys, even though I've known you for 30 years, and we're friends. But I actually do like your music, which is
Sweet.
kind
That's
of a rare
good.
thing, also.
Yeah.
My friend's music stinks.
One of the earliest compliments that I remember us getting was we were rehearsing in our house on South Aurora Street. And my friend Hannah, like she came by and she was on the porch for a while, and we stopped and she's like, "You guys like don't sound like a Friends band."
Yeah.
And I just thought that was like one of the like the most direct compliments you can get. It's like, yeah, you guys don't sound like somebody I'm pretending to be like, great job, guys, you did it. You know?
Yeah.
That though, think about it. I mean, like that should show you guys, how much, you've developed, your craft, that you don't need your friends to just lift you up. You actually have substance behind your music, and it speaks for itself. And then you create new friends based on that music.
Yeah.
So I found the picture of the sessions. So this was the transition from the first version that you guys saw, which was just the camera cuts with some basic editing. And then I took that version, and then that's when I started to like really go deep into the like the artistic rabbit hole that I'm known to go down. And this is kind of like where I started layering like textural things. So you see like this little mixed cloud thing, right? Like there are all these little nuances that are sprinkled in throughout the video that you almost won't even ever know what's actually going on there. This was like 4 days of just like nonstop, like, like crazy person. Like Christina would be like, "It's dinner time." I'm like, "Fuck you, I'll be up when I'm ready." Like, just nonsense. And then that version then came into this version, and this is where a lot of the time aligning started to happen and stuff, because somewhere in all of the really wacky editing process, the audio started to warp slightly. And so it became a whole new challenge to format the whole video in time with the actual proper audio edit. The complicatedness of this video is something I'm really proud of, but I'm also terrified of, and I hope I never do it again. It was a lot of fun to do this, but it was definitely a knock to the ego to know that like you can't just show up to a room with a bunch of cameras and 500 lasers and do something cool. You got to actually, there's got to be some intention there too. I mean, and it just wasn't the right intention, I guess. I don't know. So,
you'd think that'd be enough,
Yeah, but you would
think. Yeah, we've known each other like a while, so I want to go back and connect those dots a little bit, because you were saying, so like I don't even remember at what point did you start doing lights. Like I feel like it was for Resi, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Okay,
right.
So funny sidebar. So Packy, that post that you made the other day, I was trying to draw the original dots, right? And I was thinking, and I was like, I've known Packy the longest, right? And I came to this conclusion. Your sister Deirdre and I were friends in like second grade.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so I met you when you were in kindergarten, and then I moved away and went to Greater Plains.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. After third grade. So I left in fourth grade, and then I came back to Oni, and then I moved to Lawrence for a couple of years.
Oh, that's right.
My parents got divorced, and I actually went to Lawrence for a couple of years. And then I came back in like seventh grade or whatever it was. And then that's when I became friends with Russ, Evan's older brother.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, when you're in high school, you don't tend to pay the little brothers much attention. But you guys always kind of stood out among the pack for sure. I mean,
yeah, we were always the younger ones, that's for sure.
No, totally.
Yeah, trying to be cool or whatever. Trying to be as cool as Resi was.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't know if cool was our forte. It's definitely Packy's forte, but the rest of us not so.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I remember you grew up in our hood. I remember, like, did you live on like Linden Ave or
I lived on Myrtle. I lived on Myrtle, right around the corner from Woody's Market.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Same with me. I lived on Ford right around the corner. So yeah.
But that was my place. I got caught stealing there when I was in 3rd grade.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, dude. I stole a pack of baseball cards, and Mr. Woody came out, in his big red, beautiful beard.
Yeah.
Like he quietly just followed me back to my house. And right before I could walk in the door, he just put his hand on my shoulder and he's like, Greg, can I please have the pack of baseball cards back? So ashamed of myself. And I was just like, here you go. And he just let me go. And that was it. And he when you're 7, 8 years old, we've all done it. People handle it differently. I think that's one of the cool parts about growing up in a small town, is that something like that doesn't have to dictate how your life moves forward. It's a learning lesson, and he treated it as such. It wasn't like, I gotta tell your parents, you gotta be, there was none of that. It was just like, you fucked up, don't ever do it again, be on your way.
Yeah. Well, a lot of kids would steal from Woody's because you remember the candy rack was right there. So like if you for a split second got the cashier to just turn around or like reach below the counter, you could just be like,
yeah, I mean, he didn't make it any easier for himself, that's for sure. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, I would still go see him. Like, even when I left Oneonta, every time I went back, I would always go say hi to him. And like, he remembered me. And like, it was just one of those, like, he was one of those people that left an impression on me, and I always made a point to like make sure to go say hi to Mr. Woody. But even if I was only passing through town for 4 hours, like, I got to go stop at Woody's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've known you, Peggy. I've known you longer than Phil.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you're probably at this point my oldest friend, actually.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that's pretty cool. I never really thought about it that way until recently, but it really is. It's a pretty wild thing.
Yeah. Way back.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Look at us now.
Yeah, look at us now. Hanging out on Zoom.
Yeah, right.
So, like, at what point did you start to get into like this world of things, like modular synthesis type of stuff? Because before you were doing like, live light shows entirely with Pretty Lights. I'm sure, did it like develop with that along the way?
So
yeah.
So the quick and easy version of what got me to this place was, while with Pretty Lights, we were going through a transitional phase with how the show was being presented, because in the mid 2010s, right, like 2013, 2014, we had debuted the big band, the Analog Future band. So that was the 10 piece. There was like the horn section, and
yeah, I remember.
Right, this really big. It was like, think like Count Basie for EDM, right? Like, it was crazy. Right. But the presentation was still pretty like straightforward, because there's not a lot of space to improvise when there's that many people on stage. It was so much more about the big togetherness of the music and the visual identity. And then in 2015, I guess, maybe, we did some shows in Telluride, and that was when there was sort of this sort of bigger picture transition, I guess, for what Pretty Lights was going to become, where we just not necessarily consciously decided, but it just sort of happened. Like, the wall sort of broke down of the let's not force anything. Let's just kind of be more free and more open. And that, in the improvisational aspects, started to really take shape over that weekend. And then it just kind of propelled from there. And the biggest issue that I've always had with any video presentation in any live concert setting is that 99 times out of 100, you're just playing back some canned footage. whatever it may be. It could be, filmed cityscapes, nature, this thing, that thing, whatever. It could be some crazy 3D animations that you paid some nerd $1 million to produce for you. Whatever the case may be, right? You've got your little library of stuff, and you're just trying to use it in the most, in the best way possible, within that moment. And then on top of that, like if you don't have enough, let's say normally you play a 2-hour show, then all of a sudden you play a 3.5-hour show. You start repeating clips because you're like, shit, I just used everything I had. Like, what am I supposed to do now?
Right.
So I had this desire to evolve the video show in a way where I could improvise in the same way that I was improvising with the lights and the lasers. And at first it was a disaster because I literally, like, it started with me filming. It was actually kind of similar to this project. I was filming lights in a warehouse and filming it artistically. And that was the first iteration of the improvised video show. Was I had all of these things that I had filmed to kind of try to forcefully sync with different portions of the light show as the night went along. And I just had so much of it that I could kind of like interplay with it and then use effects and this thing and that thing. But it felt so disingenuous and I hated it. It was terrible. It was so bad. You think I would learn my lesson? I should stop trying to film lights. And then Derek basically, Pretty Lights, I was at his studio in New Orleans one day, and he handed me this like old glitch box. It's actually sitting right. Let's see. This was the start of the analog adventure. Cool. So this is an old video enhancer made by Archer that some kid named I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, he goes by Tachyons Plus. I'm gonna put space on his name and I feel really bad. So they circuit bend these glitch boxes, and then you can run whatever through it and just blah, 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 and it does all the crazy glitch, like vertical warping and all that kind of stuff. Ooh. But it led me into researching what else was out there in a video way. And so, because at first I looked at the back of that thing and it's old RCA hookups, the red, white, yellow plugs.
Yeah.
And I was like, Derek, we use HDMI and fiber optics and like all, I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to make this work? He's like, you'll figure it out. And I was like, oh, you're such an asshole. And so I started doing all this research, and that's when I discovered the video sense. And at first it was like, wow, this is cool. I can make content with it. Right. That was the original idea. I was gonna because Derek, for a bunch of years, Derek was while we were in our travels, he was filming everything. He's got this he's a really incredible like documentarian almost, or like whatever. Like he's got an amazing eye for things, especially when it comes with the camera. And he's got, this dude's sitting on just hundreds and thousands probably of hours of beautiful like filmed content. Some of which I have access to, and some of which has probably never seen the light of day. But so the original idea was to just use this stuff to affect like real life content and just kind of warp reality. And then I was like, as I started to use it more and more, I was like, I can play this live. I don't need to fucking record anything. I'm just going to take live cameras, run it through this shit, and I'm just going to do it live. So then I can actually improvise the exact same way that I do everything else. And it was a means to an end, in the sense of like the video show had finally caught up to the rest of the show in my mind. Now, some people would argue that it's not as good, and they have every right to say so, because it's a low res, dirty, messy, thing up on these like beautiful, giant HD video walls and stuff.
Right.
But the aesthetic and the conceptual grandeur of it more than makes up for its deficiencies.
Well, And also like I feel like that style almost matches what like Pretty Lights was trying to do too at that time. I feel like wasn't he kind of doing a lot of stuff with like recording stuff to tape and like
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean that's kind of been the ethos of Pretty Lights for the majority of our existence, is the merging of old and new and creating something completely new, you know? And so for me, that challenge was a little bit more ambiguous, I guess, because it was more about it's always been more about concept than actual technological approach, right? This kind of this definitely changed all of that for sure, because all of a sudden then the technology became so drastically unique. I mean, there's nobody, I can tell you right now without a shadow of a doubt, there is nobody else doing this in front of as many people as we do it in front of on the planet. You know, there are kids that are doing it and doing really cool things with it, but they are limited to their exposure and to their ability and so whatever.
Right, and the references too.
Yeah, I am 100% on an island of craziness, and all of my peers, whenever they see this shit set up, they're just like, "You're an idiot."
Like, what are you doing?
You're an idiot, you know? And they're like, I would never put myself through that. And I'm like, I know, that's why I'm the only one who can do it, because I'm okay with putting myself through the torture that comes with it all. You know?
Yeah.
But it's so it was a weird journey, and it was an accidental journey, because I wasn't seeking anything specific out. The only thing that I was seeking was that ability to have the video show feel as genuine as the rest of the show felt. That was it. Whatever it took to get there didn't matter to me, you know? So yeah. And now, you know, you fast forward 5-6 years, I found all these amazing ways to utilize it now. You know, I can film with it. I can, you know, do a music video with it. I can do whatever, you know. It's like,
yeah, it's cool. It's kind of like your like, you know, desire to not just like be sitting there kind of like running a light show, but like actually being a part of what's being created, which kind of separates what you're doing from, you know,
that's
anything else. But
that's well, and here's the thing, and I think this is a big reason why even before the analog stuff, I was getting the notoriety that I was getting, was because I took that approach with the light show.
Right.
If I ever sat anybody down in front of my console, just the lighting console, right? None of the other stuff, none of the whatever. If I ever sat them down in front of my lighting console and showed them what I was doing, they would be like, how the fuck does this work? Because there were no pre-written cues in my light show. There's no go button. I'll leave it simple, right? So when Kuroda for Fish, right, is running his show, he's improvising, but he's improvising in a very structured way. So he's got to his right, I'm not giving away any secrets here. Got a library. It's kind of similar to the video thing, right? He's got a library of really beautiful ideas, right? And the ideas are meant to cover the range of emotion and music that happens throughout the show, right? So let's say blah, 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 crazy, right? Build, you know, the big white, like on the peak, on the one thing, right? So that's go Q 303 or whatever, right? And then and he hits the go button and pop, right? There's none of that in my show. So I literally deconstruct everything. And I think that's why I took to this stuff so much. The light show, the way that I approached it, is exactly the same as a modular synthesizer. Everything is deconstructed, and I'm literally catching it as I go along throughout the night. And I have all these little tricks that allow me to kind of create on the fly to constantly present a new light show every night, regardless of the situation.
How much of like that kind of approach did you take to this video? Was this video like a series of like the way in which you manipulated the footage then? Is it like I'm guessing it's in a way that like you wouldn't be able to repeat it necessarily if you tried, right? Like it's like
No.
because it's analog gear, it's like you wouldn't necessarily like you filmed the whole thing with and projected us onto the fog screen and all of that. And so all of that was in the room. But then that footage, I feel like the way what you did with it afterwards, I feel like there's like a certain kind of magic in what happens because it's not digital.
So it's a combination of both.
Combination of both, yeah.
So there is some analog fuckery going on, but then there's also some digital, like I have a bunch of really interesting plugins and different things.
Right.
And so one of the ways that I approach my video designs is the stacking of ideas by layering different things in different ways as I go along, right? So it's like you take this set of ideas, right? And then you add this set, and then you add this set, and then you combine those all. And then you take another completely different set of ideas and you stack that on top. And so you're constantly just building and building and building on top of yourself. It could be little things. It could be like that little rainbow cloud thing that I showed you, right? It could be something stupid like that just gets jammed into the background somewhere. So then that way, when you're dancing in like the end portion of the video or whatever, there's this little rainbow texture thing. And there are all these little things that get added in. Sometimes they're used to subtract too, which is what's happening during the verse. So in every verse, it's the chorus video inverted. So that the trailed versions of you is a filter during the verse. So we're actually seeing through you as opposed to seeing you. And so the verse is an inversion of the chorus.
Cool. Ooh, because he says, "Well, I see right through you."
Ooh.
It was really, and that's one of those things where during the recording process at Lightwave, that notion changed because the fog screen was supposed to be the representation of seeing through you, but it didn't track the way that we had hoped. So then we had to change what that visual identity of being able to see through you was. So the fog screen version is now the version we see when we see through you, not the version we see through. Does that, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? It's dude, it got really, really, really like deep, like meta kind of like, I'm taking this too far. And you're
like up at 3 a.m. having conversations with yourself down here. Like,
oh dude. I mean, well, it's funny because I'm always talking to myself when I'm doing this stuff. Because there are so many ideas running through my head that the dialogue that I have with myself helps me filter the stupid ideas from the really stupid ideas. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was more gratifying, this video, I think, because of all of the mistakes that were made and all of the like kind of pivots that were made to make it what it is. It's like in the chorus, you know, there's 50 versions of you. And if you were moving smoothly, it wouldn't have that same impact that it has, you know? Right. And so that was a happy accident too.
What is that when it's doing that, like on the choruses, like what's going on with that? When there's
it's an old video trick called frame storing. I've got this cool device back here called the Fairlight CVI. I didn't use it for this one. I actually used a modern day version. But basically all of the like cool animation stuff that you would have seen on like MTV and stuff in like the late 80s and early 90s was all made from that thing.
Right.
Yeah. What it does is like it's got like a frame store system. So it's creating those versions that trail behind you, and you can adjust the spacing between them and the density and this thing and that thing. It's almost like feedback, but not quite the same as feedback. It's like another like weird video kind of thing. Right. It was definitely the aha moment because that was, remember in the first version that I had presented to you guys, it only happened.
It happened once, I think.
In like the bridge or the guitar outro.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, we're like, that needs to happen again.
Like, hey, here's the best part. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
The whole fucking song then. You know, it's literally in the entire song. It's just different versions of it throughout the course of the song. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna, if everyone is reacting this strongly to that section, I'm just gonna take it and run with it. You know?
Yeah, that was definitely the highlight. I think
Yeah, it was
stuck
funny.
out.
Because like
Yeah.
even like there's like a couple of people that I had showed, like on my side of things, and they were like, whatever the fuck you're doing there, just keep doing that. And I was like,
Yeah.
cool, it's done.
Yeah. Isn't that funny that sometimes it takes somebody else to point that out to you, and you're like, "That's what you think is cool? Oh, that's easy. I can do that."
Throwaway thing, to be honest with you. I didn't
Yeah.
think of it, because, and that's the other thing, the thing that people don't realize for all of us, right? When you do this for a living, right? Packy, I know you're playing the drums all the fucking time.
Mhm.
Like, Evan, I'm sure, I don't know how much you play guitar. You probably spend more time songwriting, right? Writing than playing it, or
A
is it?
little of both, yeah, but yeah.
But I mean, for me, right? Especially since I've moved into this space, I will spend, I mean, 20 hours a week with no objective, with nothing to show for it even, right? Just exploring, practicing, learning new things, whatever, right?
Right.
So I will see all of these amazing things that I maybe will remember one day. Maybe I won't. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Like my artistic process is not about what I've done. It's about what I'm going to do. So I don't try to like grasp onto things as much. But like, so there are all of these amazing things. And like, I don't want to say that I've become desensitized to my own work because I definitely haven't, but you do get lost in it and you
Yeah.
sometimes lose track of what is really the cool thing happening because you may think of something, right? Like, um, what's a great way to describe this? Like, okay, so the process may create the memory that makes something stand out, right? So like if you overcame a problem, right? Like let's say you're trying to do this really, really crazy drum fill, right? And like one day you finally like your wrist just finally like moved that one certain way that you've been trying to get it to do, right? And you go do that drum fill in front of fucking thousands of people and nobody gives a fuck, right?
Yeah.
But then like your simple like old school 80s like boom 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 right, and the place goes wild and you're like
Impactful. Yeah.
right. So sometimes the process or what you perceive to be impressive, nobody else could give two shits about.
Totally.
And so it's important to share these things with other people so that way you can hold on to some sort of perspective beyond your own,
Yeah. It brings your feet back to like on the ground too, and like to get the perspective of like, like what a normie would think from the situation, because like it's like you said, because you're too close to it, and like the things that are impressive to you right now are because you're pushing the boundaries of what you know how to do. Yeah. Whereas a lot of people don't even know what you can do. Yeah. So like they, like so yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that. It's you can really get lost in your own process to the point where it just doesn't have an effect on people because you're like, isn't this cool? And they just don't appreciate like the subtle little thing that you're trying to do and convey. But they see this other like thing that to you is just commonplace.
Yeah. I think that's like something that I know Packy, I feel like you and I have talked about this, like since kind of like being out in LA, that we learned while being there is just like in you, Packy, like working a lot of production out there and stuff like that. And just for me, just from people I run into, you learn that like, what sometimes you realize that what you're doing is actually like way more, you're just way in your own head about it.
Yeah.
And then you see what's like popular or whatever, and you go, oh, that's all they're doing. You know what I mean? And you're like, man, I'm overthinking this. Like,
overthinking this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. And there's oh gosh. So I'm trying to think because I can't remember who it was, but somebody it was like part of like a demo pack of like sounds or something, right? But you could basically get their Ableton session for how they produce this track, right? And I've been like slowly start trying to figure out how to learn Ableton. And I pulled up this session and there was nothing there, but the song was there. And it was all really simple. It's just like a drum track, with like 3 keys tracks, an effect thing, and like bass or whatever. And it was like a full song. And like, I was like, if that's really all it takes, then this shouldn't be that hard. Why? Like, why is it so hard still? And I think, it goes to the confidence in yourself to get out of your own way. Sometimes,
Yes, absolutely.
the path of least resistance is the best. And then sometimes, taking everything plus the kitchen sink and throwing it out the window is the way to go. And there's a balance to both, and I think that's where the true beauty of art lies, is
Definitely.
knowing when to like just kill yourself over something, and knowing when to just let the breeze push you in that direction.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's like you said, that's what those 20 hours a week are for. Like in your case, it's just basically like your idea generator.
Yeah.
And you're just filing away ideas. And like I do the same thing here where I'm like, oh, well, this is like seemingly useless to me at the moment. I guess I'll just like file this away at a point where like maybe I can make use of it.
I think the greatest thing that I took away from this whole project was to never see things for what they are on the surface, right? You can't just be like, well, we're going to show up and we're going to film this really cool stuff and it's going to be amazing. You got to, there's got to be a little bit more intention on that side of it. But fortunately enough for me, I've got enough talent on the back end that I was able to overcome all of that, the shortcomings, on the front end of the project. And so the balancing act is probably my biggest challenge moving forward. So that way, then I don't have to kill myself in post-production to make because one of the big things that I would love to do moving forward is to be able to film in a more traditional sense, cinematography, photorealism, all these different things, and to get to that place, I've got a lot more to learn. And this was definitely a good eye-opening experience for me in that sense. Because I don't see myself in like 6 months or a year, doing like some 10 camera shoot like you guys did for Bonfires or I don't think that was a 10 camera shoot, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't see myself doing a Bonfires-esque music video, not anywhere near in the short term. Maybe 5 years from now, that would be amazing. I would love to get to that place. Because so much of what I am known for is this sort of abstract, ethereal, surrealist, kind of place where I create new environments. So, the balance between the two, existing in the real world while still be able to use my otherworldly aesthetic to create new styles. That's where I want to go. This is kind of a step in that direction.
Cool.
So thank you guys for letting me use you as guinea pigs in my journey.
Yeah, man, that's what collaborations are for, and I'm glad that we got to do this one and a couple more. So
yeah,
it was awesome. Honestly, the end result does not seem like we were used as guinea pigs. Honestly, it looks like it was totally intended to be that way, and it was awesome.
That's right. So, yeah. Sometimes these behind the scene things can be counterproductive because now everyone's going to know that I'm this insecure weirdo who's not proud of his work.
I think I don't know.
Just like all of us.
Just like all of us. Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm very proud of this, and I'm even more proud of the next one that we're putting out. So I really can't wait for that one to come out. Thank you again so much for letting me be a part of the journey with you guys. The whole album is amazing, and I think that people are gravitating towards it. So I think you guys are onto something here, and I look forward to seeing what happens next.
Yeah, awesome. It means a lot coming from you, man, and love talking, love catching up as always.
Absolutely, guys. Take care, be well, stay safe.
Cool. Thanks, Ellis.
Wear
a mask.